They really are. And at least in the spoiler, it doesn't look like the Death Pact Angels are all that rare either. So there may be a decent chance of popping one open. So I'll let you know when I get in more minis. I technically have a brick of minis up on my shelf in the store, but I'd like to keep them there for right now because my my Wednesday crew and those who come in earlier before Thursdays haven't had a chance to look at the minis yet. Oh, Coffee Cat, I'll do my best. I've been I had a late start today, and I've been out and about since then. And in fact, the reason why we started a little later than normal tonight is because I didn't get home until later than I had expected. So it's not that I've been forgetting. I haven't had the opportunity to send them over to you. So I will be sure to do so, and I appreciate the reminder on that. Maybe I can do that tonight as well. I can sit down and because I had some guests that ended up leaving earlier today, and so I don't have to do any sort of entertaining or the like. I'll be able to sit down and work on the orphanage and give you those whispers from our Tuesday RP session. If any of you want to know what Coffee Cat's talking about, we play D&D on Tuesdays. Okay. Tonight, well, let me say, last night, we finished our 5th player character for our Ravnica party. We're going to start with the 2 characters that we made during the Unearthed Arcana release of Ravnica Races. Right? So, it was, oh, did I accidentally close the other one? I might have. So we had our two anti-heroines here, and on top of those 2, who then went through the Lone LOAN Lone Survivor campaign that we made, we're now going to make a follow-up story to that, and we're going to make a full party of 5. So we made our Goblin Bard, our Minotaur Cleric, and our Vidalcan Sorcerer Barbarian to round out everyone. Now, when we made the original campaign, we looked through our 2 PCs, and we were able to pull out elements of them in order to turn them into NPCs that we can weave into the story. And we even had, like here, you can, if you go over to our past content, right here, you can download the PCs we made, and you can download the NPCs and the villains and all that other stuff right here. So this is who we made off of our 2 PCs that we had at the time. Cindy Rose, half-elf cleric. She is of the Orzhov faction, and she's a cleric of trickery. And we went through all the steps that we're finding over here for creating non-player characters, because we were able to pull information off of our character, our PCs. And don't forget this, as a DM, your player characters are going to be bringing a lot of information to consider for insertion into your story. Our second NPC we made is Teraf Gumchew, Alley Runner, Minotaur Paladin, Oath of Devotion. Occupation and history, we went through this, his appearance, his different talents and mannerisms, who he is and what he did. He used to be in a Rakdos gang, but he saw the light and he switched over to be in the Boros Legion, and so now he's kind of he's like a anti-gang cop, specialized in in Infiltration, runs kind of a scared straight program where he says, yeah, look, I'm missing fingers. This is what happens if you join a gang. And this is what happens especially if you get caught up in these sort of things. And so he was kind of the Inspector Zenigata of Lupin III here. If our two anti-heroes or anti-heroines here were Lupin and his crew, this was Zenigata. So he didn't like what the not villains were doing, but he was just disappointed. Yeah, he saw the light. Literally, if he's a paladin, and more so because he's Boros. That they're all about fire and flame and the like. And so we developed him as this character, as someone who's maybe a rival would be a good way of putting it, and maybe an ally, very much more of a rival or a foil. Whereas Cindy Rose here is definitely more of an ally. And so you know what this means, everyone? That means we were doing... I'm going to take credit for something that, I don't know. I doubt we had any influence in. But we did what was printed months later in the book. Unprompted. That's right. We are Wizards of the Coast R&D here at Matty Morgs, everyone. You are on the cutting, bleeding edge of Dungeons and Dragons thought and conception and execution of material. Welcome aboard. So now what I want to do, right? Let's look at the 3 PCs we generated and see what we can develop from them. Oh, there's Winifred. All right, so Winifred and Byra were our original 2, and we're going to carry over the PCs. In our discussion, we didn't have... I don't believe we had either of the NPCs killed or went missing. So they're going to be around, and we'll consider them when we make our campaign tomorrow. Now let's take a look at Ala Ra here, our Vidalkin. What are some contacts? What are some pieces of information, especially from the character's background, that we can develop into an NPC for this campaign? Let's see. I like to remind people of their inevitable demise. Sometimes I give voice to the whispers of the rot, which I hear, but no one else does. So, that's kind of creepy. But you know what that could mean? So we have this... What is this? Voice of the rot. What could it mean? I have an identical twin who is as different from me as any person could be. So now we have Allah's different identical twin. We have our contacts. A Medusa decided it would be more fun to recruit me into the guild than to kill me. Allah's Medusa recruiter. A rival. An elf lich is determined to see me become a lich someday, too. Allah's lich recruiter. Now, we'll note that this is an ally and that this is a rival. Now, we have a non-Golgari contact. Oh, Rhodey says, or anyone else, me or anyone else here, I was wondering how you handle cast times in chaotic situations. Like battles happening and suddenly the enemy turns on your priest as they are casting the spell to cast heal. How would you handle the time between the casting and the attack? When you cast on your action on your turn. Not that something couldn't, I guess, provoke an attack during the cast, but for the most part, you're casting within the confines of your turn. And most spells only take your turn to cast. So your spell would be, you know, instantaneous within the moments that you're casting it. Now, if you are doing a ritual, your ritual would be interrupted. Or if you're trying to maintain concentration on a spell, you'd have to roll to check and see if you're maintaining concentration on your spell, or if taking an injury or being attacked in some other way wouldn't interrupt your spell. But for most spells that are just instantaneous, they take one action to cast, they cast and the effect resolves. My undercity explorations led me into an Orzhov vault, and a spirit thinks I stole something valuable. Well, you know, we already have an NPC that we made in our prior campaign that is an Orzhov spirit. And so here, I think this is a very good hook into bringing this NPC along and bringing this PC now into the party with our non-guild affiliated anti-heroes. So Allah's non-guild contact is Cindy Rose. And when you're running stories in sequence, this is a very good way that if your player characters had an attachment to this mentor type figure, this is a good way now to bridge in the new content by combining it with the old in a very organic fashion. And so let's say that you played Lone Survivor and it took you several months to get through. Well, now you have those memories, right? You have those NPCs, you have the location. You're very invested in the location in mind. And now when these new characters come along, especially to these anti-heroes who might be skeptical or just, you know, are very they may be slow to trust others to join them in something. Well, now you have this NPC who's a bond to the two characters. Be able to provide that handoff of trust. So it's a good way to continue one story into the next. Hey DJ, welcome. You missed us popping open the last of our boxes of minis, and we're now starting to plan our NPCs. Alright, so that is Ala Ra. So here we have Jeremy, or we're calling him Jeremy. Jeremy the Goblin. Let's look at his background and see what kind of NPC information we can extrapolate from it. Like a wild animal, I lash out viciously when provoked. I'm easily provoked, and I put my knowledge of anatomy to use by narrating the injuries my enemies suffer in grisly detail. Meddling in the affairs of other guilds is a great way to get squashed. I cherish the finger of a family member who is petrified by a Medusa. Cherished family member's finger / Medusa that caused petrification. Or I guess we could even just put on a separate line. All right, so he's a lot more to himself in this case. But because he is a member of the guild, here we go. Let's go over to let's see. I know a find broker who can locate just about anything for the right price. So we... Probably Wednesday, DJ. And thank you very much for the bits. Jeremy's find broker. Ally. Ah, here we go. Jeremy's. Lich. Whoop, lice. Lich recruiter. Rival. Who also shares a rival with Allah. And they're both in the Golgari. They're both in the Golgari clan. Or the swarm. I think now that we have a redundancy like this, and remember, all this was completely randomly rolled. This was meant to happen, right? So I think we have a strong candidate for an NPC, maybe a villain even. Our non-Golgari contact, and is it scientist, resents that I sold a scrapped invention I found in the sewer. Non-guild contact. Now, we didn't really say if this was a rival or an ally, because you can really make that choice. We did touch on the Izits in Lone Survivor. In fact, that was the focus of the dungeon of that story, where you had a bit of a mad scientist who was playing around with weirds. And that's also how our guildless people came across the Golgari. So Jeremy's non-guild contact could be from the former villain. From the former villain's lab. Again, we're bridging our old content with the new, so that if you were playing this, you would have continuity from one story to the next, and you could recall, oh, I remember that dungeon. Yeah, we ran through it. It had like the steam vent maze, maybe something like the one in Undertale that we played through a little while ago. Oh yeah, he was the crazy guy. He was kind of like a Mr. Freeze about his wife, but he was trying to like summon in elementals from the outside and study them and infuse them and do this other stuff in order to, I think, to try and bring her back. And so now we have a player character who has a non-guild contact who could have been in that lab and maybe even fled when our anti-heroes came in and started busting stuff up. But because there's a power vacuum, maybe this person came back and took over the lab. Still in the name of the Izit. But here we go. Right? We're making links. Maybe the rival does not know how to really be nice and just treat everyone fairly bad. Are you talking about the Lich recruiter? Now, our last PC that we made last night here is Drandar Svarakaz. This is our sort of our Judge Dredd Azorius, street cop here. Let's see. Let my judgment become clouded by emotion. Sorry for the yawn. I never change my mind once it's made up. The law is meant to ensure... Alright. I tried and failed to prevent a murder, and I have sworn to find and arrest the perpetrator. Alright, so here we have... we have the escaped murderer. Incapable of deception. Everything else is really about him. I'm doing a rewrite of my plot because I looked at the story in the wrong way. So now I'm sending a 4-person party on a journey to another city to request a foreign king to share his technology. I'm trying to use D&D-esque world mechanics to make it seem more interesting. Been reading about magic so far. Don't worry about the wall of text. You're fine, Rhodey. If you want writing help or inspiration, especially where it intersects with Dungeons and Dragons, you are very welcome to pop over to our Discord here, and we have writing mentors over here in our mentor workshop. And so you can always, if you pop into our project workshop here, you can, you can obviously you can always ask questions over here, and we'll answer them because that's our community. This is what we do. But if you want something more in detail, or you want to have another type of conversation, you're always welcome to pop in here, Rhodey. Alright, let's see. Azorius contacts. I know a homunculus in the halls of New Prov who can get things done behind the scenes. So this is going to be Driandar's homunculus contact. Ally. Driandar's... I was second best at everything in my legal training, and now I work with the person who was always just a little bit better. So, I mean, just Driandar's... legal rival. Ally. As a teenager, I was a page for a prominent judge. So this is an ally that so we have an Driandar's judge page ally. Now, how can we hook this character in? Well, this is our Minotaur, works for the Azorius, kind of a sister organization to the Boros. And we have a Minotaur who studied law in order to become a part of the Legion. And you know what would work really well then? Driandar's rival could very well be... Dun 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 dun. Whoop, that's here we go. Teraf. Our paladin, like, anti-gang cop. And so now we have another link. Right? All three of our newly arrived members of the party have a link with the original two that our first story was based around. It's organic. It expands the world, but not too much, not too quickly. And this is still going to ensure that the party can work together. And that the party can function. Especially because if you didn't know this or catch this, right? So we have our lawful evil Azorius agent. We have our lawful evil Goblin Bard. We have a true neutral Sorcerer Barbarian. We have a neutral evil Warlock. And a neutral evil Death Cleric. By the way, I think this is an awesome party. This party would be so much fun to run some content for. We effectively have an evil party here, ladies and gentlemen. They're working for the good of Ravnica. but they're doing so for their own reasons and in their own ways, right? And, you know, if you're evil, you tend to be more selfish, and you say, well, why would we want to work with anyone else? We might not trust them. We have given now reasons for our players piloting their PCs to at least have a tentative trust with each other. Rhodey, yes. I mean, saying superhero is it's very interesting. I mean, in so much that the Suicide Squad or the Thunderbolts for DC or Marvel respectively are superheroes, then yes, it's our two superheroes that we made for our last Ravnica campaign. So who's Batman here? I don't really think we have a Batman-style character unless we make it as a PC or a villain. Well, Rhodey, if you want to know what happened in that campaign, Lone Survivor, you can find that in our past content section on our Discord and or on YouTube, and you can watch the session, or you can just download the notes. So now from this, let's make 2 NPCs that we can generate that can either help bind the 2 groups together or otherwise enhance what is already here. I think, well, we have this Lich Recruiter, I mean, who wants them to become a Lich. Each of these 2, kind of pitting them against each other in a way. I think this is more a candidate for a villain, and we'll do villains a little bit later here. But I do believe here we have a mention that there's a Medusa that caused the petrification of one of our goblin's family members, and we have a Medusa that that recruited Ala Ra into the Golgari instead of turning her into a statue. Why would this be an NPC and not a villain then, especially if we have a lawful evil goblin bard? Well, you know what? In this case, what if our goblin is like the Ferengi from Star Trek? He might not have necessarily have liked or even, you know, maybe the family member was cherished, at least in this aspect. Maybe he cherishes this family member's finger because he didn't get along with that family member. And so when the family member was turned to stone by a Medusa, he's keeping the finger as a trophy because of some rivalry that he had. And so he actually has no ill will towards the Medusa. In fact, he might have even arranged for the Medusa to try and recruit his family member into the Golgari swarm. So the Medusa may not necessarily be a bad person, right? So I think we have a strong candidate for NPC 1, Medusa, Recruiter. NPC 2, how can we distill this? So we have a homunculus contact that's an ally of Drandar. And we have this find broker that the goblin shares. As our find broker can help find people to buy certain things. And then we have our homunculus here. Who can get things done behind the scenes. I think that we have made another NPC. So the Medusa Recruiter is going to bind Allah and Jizdakes. Jizdex? Because it's not an E-A-U-X like French which would be an O. But Jeremy. as we're calling him. NPC 2 is a homunculus. What would be, I guess like a clerk. A homunculus clerk that binds Jeremy and Drandar. I mean, because arguably, because we have our other ones, I mean, we can call this like NPC, like A, NPC B, or something along those lines. So we have Cindy Rose binds Winifred Byra to Allah. And then we have our Minotaur here, Teraf. Binds Winifred Byra to Drandar. So Allah has 2, Jeremy has 2, Drandar has 2, and Winifred and Byra have 2. It works out really well that we have these NPCs that are providing these channels for our PCs to continually get along. Swifty, can I use Discord to help me with the Dungeon Master? Yeah, Swifty, you're very welcome to do so. Just hop over there and make sure you're explaining what you're seeking to do. You know, don't leave it open like, hey, can someone help me do something? Make sure you're providing a specific request, and others. I mean, if I have the opportunity, I'll definitely try and help you. Others might beat me to it, and we'll be able to help you develop your character, Swifty. Now, this does leave a couple strays, right? I mean, we have this identical twin that's out there somewhere. We could make that as a villain if we really wanted to, or not everything has to be closed. Not everything has to be balanced. I think I was kind of raging about this, or not raging, but I was commenting on it last night, maybe the night before, where there's this. Maybe it's just a part of us as human beings, where we want to see balance and we want to see things, you know, level. You know, in modern maybe writing or modern storytelling, or if you look at movies, we have this very like Disneyfied. I mean, it's now Star Wars is Disney, but we have this very Star Wars that balance must be brought to the Force. There must always be equal parts of light and darkness. I mean, look at their what's the TV show that they have about that? It takes place in what, Storybrooke? You know, where there has to be a balance and things have to be equal in measure. And so in this case, we somehow feel like we have to have NPCs for everyone that balances all contact. That is absolutely not the case, and that is a garbage thought. Because imbalances exist. And what that could lead to is more content down the line. It can lead to mystery. It can lead to surprises. And it can also just lead to individuality. Maybe Allah's different identical twin has nothing against the other people with whom she associates. But if we include her, she may not be a big NPC. You know, she may not have an important role in an organization. She may not be a villain of some kind. But during the course of this story, the twin may come up and just simply be something personal to that one character. Whether it's in the case of if an altercation breaks out, some sort of violence or words are exchanged. So allow that to happen, right? Allow your PCs to have something of their own that doesn't have to be shared with everyone else. Don't force balance. Right? We have an escaped murderer. Is this going to be the BBEG villain of the campaign? It could be. I'm not against that thought. Or could this just be something that we know that the person piloting our Minotaur is going to be on the lookout for? And it'll be a side adventure that will spotlight our one character. The twin will spotlight our other character. This, Jeremy's villain, or the former lab assistant to the villain of the last campaign, that is something that will spotlight our bard, and that's fine. That works out very well, because not all characters can have the spotlight, and not all characters are going to get along. Even by the end of this campaign, we might still see a fallout, right? We have very personally driven characters with what we're going to be getting into here. Anyway, lecture on NPCs over, which I hope in some way was, it got you thinking about what's the role of NPCs. How should I make them? What should, what should they do? And does everyone have to have an NPC? No, if one of your PCs is a barbarian from the Outlands, who was an orphan and just grew up, just isolated, and there's really no NPC contact, that's fine. If that person's enjoying the character, they don't need all this other, the extra trappings of civilization or the like. All right. So I'm going to give you some ASMR. And we'll begin making the two NPCs, which doesn't take a lot to do. When you're making an NPC, you don't have to stat them out and build them completely as a character. Because in many times, the role they're going to take inside your story is going to be that of a facilitator, a touchstone. The characters are going to interact with the NPC and be on their way. Combats with them can happen, and in that case, you gotta generally know, unless you do want to stat them out or use a monster block, that's fine. But when we're creating a story, don't worry about the numbers. Worry about who the people are. And let's do that right now. So, class, if you have your Dungeon Master's guides, please open them to page 89 for creating non-player characters. And what we can do is we can take... We'll take what we have here. We'll copy it and bring it right down here. And we will delete our prior content and save us some time. And we have this now. So let's copy this, because we're going to make a second NPC. And here we go. Rhodey, it does. It very much does. All right, we don't have a name yet, but we're gonna just put in name Medusa, recruiter of the Golgari swarm. Our second is going to be a Homunculus Clerk of the Azorius Senate. Alright, designing NPCs. For NPCs who play larger roles in your adventures, allow more time to flesh out their histories and personalities. As you'll see, 10 sentences can sum up the main elements of a memorable NPC, one sentence for each of the following. Occupation and history, appearance, abilities, talent, mannerism, interactions with others, useful knowledge, ideal, bond, and a flaw or a secret. Gammy Darkleer? So what? Explain the name. Why Gammy? Why Gammy Darkleer? Who's the Darkleer family? There is meaning in a name beyond just a name being the name. And I'm not against Gammy, but I want to challenge this as a thought-provoking exercise. All right, occupation and history. In one sentence, describe the NPC's occupation and provide a brief historical note that hints at the character's past. For example, the NPC might have served in an army, been imprisoned for a crime, or adventured years ago. All right, occupation and history. She is a recruiter that meets with potential guild members I thought I spelled that correctly. Oh, it is just one T. If you want to vet someone. In order to vet their capabilities, including tolerating the unique members and terrain the guild holds dear. NPC appearance. Now look, we know this is a Medusa, a Gorgon, all right? But what's going to be something unique? It's not just going to be a snake person. Or I guess even a snake lady. I don't know if all Medusa are technically female. How does that work? If we go by Monster Girl Encyclopedia rules, then we know, but I want to keep this PG-13. Darkleer sounds intimidating, so say Gammy is just what people call her now, and Darkleer is an old name nearly forgotten with time. Alright, so by this, if she's called Gammy, then, you know, maybe she's an old recruiter. She's been with the Golgari for a while. You know, maybe her snakes are turning a little gray. So, like, Gammy is sort of an affectionate title. Gammy Darkleer. Sure, we'll just do this. Nice thoughts, Rhodey. Maybe some of the Medusa snakes have turned to stone rather than just turned gray. Ooh, that could be interesting too. As the Medusa ages, she begins turning to stone. How about that? All right, let's roll a d20, everyone, and find out what is a unique part of Gammy's appearance. 2. Piercings. All right, we have a Medusa. What would make for interesting piercings? Now, I mean, there's obvious. We have, eyebrows and ears, other locations which could be, presented or hinted at. Is there a way that her, that her snakes could somehow have a piercing of some kind? Would she have maybe like a unique... Maybe she'd have 2 unique piercings in her lower lip that would look like fangs, even though she has normal teeth? Some of the snakes have piercings in their mouths like hairpins. DJ says the fang piercing idea is fairly good. So she'll look a lot more intimidating, right? And then she'll go, but the fangs are just on the lower lip instead. So she opens her mouth and then she can like smile and, gotcha. Right? She's a first contact. She's a recruiter. She's here to test people. Pardon. Piercings. She wears 2 fang-like piercings in her lower lip as a way to surprise, goad, or intimidate new recruits. The head serpents have golden teeth. Look, piercings plural. We don't have to just stick with one. Additionally, so if she were to put something maybe through like through kind of the snoot of her snakes, it would give them the appearance of a gold. Ostomer. Oh, you might be held up in ad purgatory, so I'll wait until you fully show up here, Ostomer. Many, not all for some reason, of her snakes have, what is it, septum? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Ostomer, good morning to you. Thank you very much for that host. It's always a pleasure to have you here, my friend. There we go. Great ideas. And you know what? We left an interesting bit open, right? Additionally, many, but not all for some reason. Maybe she only pierces one of her snakes in her hair for a particular reason. And yes, good evening. Good evening from Ohio to Ostomer. It is just 12:36 a.m. for me. But I think you're 6 or 7 hours ahead. So it's probably, what, about 7:30 or 8:30 for you right now? Well, I guess that depends if on any time, any daylight savings time considerations, too. Maybe she has ear loops that a few of the snakes rest or coil. Possibly. Or she wears, it's not a piercing, but she just sort of wears her hair up in a ring that just sort of lets the snakes kind of like, woo, just sort of flop down, since they're being supported by the ring. Oh, and Roxy, thank you also for that host. Unless you're also... Oh, there's Roxy. Hi, welcome. All right, her abilities. I'm going to roll 2d6, and we're going to go high and low. 6 and 5. So she has high charisma. That works out. But low wisdom. So she's oblivious or absent-minded, but she's persuasive, forceful, and a born leader. This could be very interesting. Especially as a recruiter, right? Now, it doesn't mean that a low wisdom has to mean that she has a 6 or it's like a super dump stat for her. It's just definitely not her best. Whoop, and I put this on the other side here. Wisdom. Her charisma, I guess her charismatic ways, empowered her to become significant to the swarm. And she is responsible. Oh, wow, Sawfang. Thank you also for that host. To you, or if any of you are also caught in ad purgatory, I'll hold on just a second here for you. And she is responsible for bringing several powerful members into the guild. However, she can be absent-minded and forgetful of many things outside her role. Sawfang, there we are. Take my host. I see you working on that Ravnica stuff. Yep. Hey, go to work, make that money. You know, pay your bills, do what you got to do. I very much appreciate the raid, or the host in this case. I hope that you had a good session yourself, and for all of you who came over with Sawfang, yes, we are working on Ravnica content. Hey, get comfy, grab a snack and a drink. We're making NPCs. We're talking about characters, and just sit back and enjoy. You know, kind of like a Bob Ross episode. Pull up a comfy chair, and I'll paint here and prompt you, and enjoy the imagination. And if you have any input into the characters we're creating, please, you can blurt it out. You don't need to raise your hand. You don't need permission. This is an involved discussion among all of us here at the table. Rhodey says, if wisdom applies to impulsiveness, I would replace the absent-mindedness with less impulse control. We could describe her as such. I mean, would impulsiveness be wisdom? Would it be intelligence? Could it even be charisma, right? To carry yourself in a certain decorum, to not give in to your impulses. All right, her talent. We're going to roll a d20. And we got a 20. Oh, she knows Thieves' Cant. Considering the Golgari occupation of the Undercity, she has learned, I guess we'll say, like, several versions of this secret language in order to pass along info and recruit able-bodied people already comfortable with the underbelly of Ravnica. She could be an old assassin or thief and has a hard time resisting the urge to attack or steal things. And you know what, Rhodey? That's a very good extrapolation of this as well. She knows thieves can't. And, you know, so we're giving it an official reason. Like, she uses it in her current job. But what did she do before she was a recruiter? Why was she put up into this position, which could be dangerous as well? Right? You're having to make contact with people of other guilds who want to convert, or the guildless, and you want to convince them, especially as a Medusa. She could have been an assassin or a thief or some other kind of person here, and so she grew up with this. That's a good consideration, Rhodey. You know, maybe that's where she got that name Darkleer, where people think it's a formal name. It's actually her old nickname before it became Gammy. For like grandma, because she's, you know, she's an older Medusa. Mannerism. In one sentence, describe one mannerism that will help your players remember the NPC. Let's roll another d20. 2. Speaks in rhyme or some other peculiar way. So let's see. Her sing-songy cadence helps to disarm suspicion of those she hunts for contact or possible recruitment into the swarm. Her after she speaks, her snakes will softly hiss echoes of the words she used. So here you have this, you know, think about this. You've been contacted, you know, hey, we the Golgari want to speak with you. You know, we think you might have something, you know, useful talents. You're brought into this kind of like, you know, into the dark undercity, and you're led into a room, you know, and then sort of slithering from the shadows into the one shaft of light coming down from up above. Is this or maybe not slithering because she can walk if she's a Medusa, unless you want her to slither. That's up to you. You gotta give a Medusa a snake body. After she speaks, her snakes will softly hiss echo. So, you know, she'll come out and come up with a rhyme of welcome to the Golgari and have a seat. I assure you it will be a pleasure we meet. And when she gives this soft rhyme, right, then her snake hair, pleasure we meet, have a seat, as all the snakes are sort of like slowly kind of doing their own thing. That could be a cool effect. Again, we're going for what is memorable about this one character, apart from other Medusa or other members of the Golgari, who may be Gorgons themselves. Interactions with others. In one sentence, describe how the NPC interacts with others, using the NPC interaction traits table if necessary. Let's roll a d12. 7. Honest. May, in order to leave the organization, must recruit someone to replace her. Yeah, if she's ever at a point in time where maybe she feels that she should. I don't know. I'd imagine that the swarm is taking good care of her. But or this could come up. You know, if she talks to people honestly, she's gonna tell them about the Golgari. We live in the sewers. We eat fungus we grow from dead bodies. However, if you want to live a good long while, we'll feed you. We'll provide you medical care. You know, you will, and you'll be directly helping the poor and starving of Ravnica. Pardon. You're going to be doing good things, and you're going to be living a humble life. And as a recruiter, maybe that's refreshing. That she's not just fibbing and trying to, you know, sell you out on some big idea. She's going to tell you what life in the sewers and the Undercity is going to be like. She's going to tell you you're probably going to have to fight against the Gruul, the Gruul clans. You know, you're going to have to worry about the Dimir traveling through our lands. And perhaps carrying some unsavory business with them. You know, they may incorporate undead into their philosophy, but it doesn't mean that they're evil. The Golgari aren't inherently evil. But they definitely live differently. If you're in the Golgari swarm, you know, the bed you return to is not gonna be the same as someone in the Orzhov Syndicate or the Azorius Senate. Or even something more Spartan, perhaps like someone in the Boros Legion, who probably returns back to a bunk, kind of a narrow bunk in a military barracks or some other bivouac. But you know what? You may be sleeping in an unused pipe, but that bed of moss you're lying in that big puffy mushroom pillow, will give you the best night's sleep you've ever had. You can use that last post as her ideal. If you want to stick around, you have to be useful because good looks only last so long. Oh, that could be interesting. Pneumonica says, why am I reminded of a joke from Crushed? The monsters need to recruit others, so they put the one with the highest charisma. Who is the Gorgon Medusa? Excuse me, would you be interested? Oh, hell. All right, useful knowledge. In a sentence. Ah, le happy panda. Le panda heureux. Is it heureux or droll? I think it's heureux. H-E-R-E-A-U-X. Anyway, le happy panda. Thank you very much for the follow. I hope you're having fun and that you're finding this stimulating and that it's a fun adventure to go on. There was a follow-up to that joke. You petrified the stone golem. How is that even possible? Just, you know, oh, such talent, right? You overpower it. Oh, and that's a cute panda emote too. Describe one bit of knowledge the NPCs possess that might be useful to the player characters. She might know something as banal as the best inn in town, or as important as the clue needed to solve a murder. She has intimate knowledge of many members of the Golgari swarm. And even hears much street talk about the other guilds, as contact with the populace at large is a part of her job. She also knows many secrets under the city, including some from her own past. Again, leave it open-ended like that. It may never come up if your PCs interact with this NPC, but use it as a reminder for you as the DM to use it as a prompt. So there's something in her past that maybe she's running from or is sealed away. Something that could rise up in the current era and help in a situation. Relatively new to D&D, watching streams like this has been enlightening and an overall fun time. I'm very glad, and welcome to the hobby, Panda. We primarily, we play on Tuesdays to practice what we preach. Wednesday through Saturday, we are a workshop stream. And we're here to do D&D 101. You don't have to know a lot. I provide books on screen, but if you have the books at home, you're welcome to follow along. And I want you to realize that D&D is very accessible as a player or as a DM. So you can participate in this conversation, Panda. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask as well. All right, her ideal. In a sentence, describe one ideal that the NPC holds dear and which governs his or her greater actions. Let's roll. All right, so I am going to roll. So I'm going to roll 2d6. Or I guess we'll go odds for good, evens, not just good, I'm sorry. Odds for the left column, evens for the right column, and then 1 through 6 to determine where we're at. Evens. We have 2, 2. So evens is evil, and then I guess with 2, we still have one of these here. So if we're to split it then and go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would still be an evil ideal. And then we have to roll 1d6 one more time here if we're going to be truly random. Now, for any of you watching Panda, if you're new here, you don't have to randomly generate any of this. Or some or all. We do it here because by subjecting ourselves to pure randomness, it's a great exercise in imagination. How can we pineapple pen this information together to come up with a very organically built character? But if you have characteristics already in mind, put it to paper. You can skip these steps. You don't have to do it randomly if you don't so choose. 1. Domination. Player characters who uncover an NPC's ideal can use what they've learned to influence the NPC in a social interaction. Ideals can connect to alignment. Alignment connections are here suggested only. An evil character could have beauty as an ideal, for instance. That's very much true. Domination. So she seeks... I guess so... Yeah, she seeks to be a controlling member of the swarm. Pardon. And have a snake in every... It will be a little tongue-in-cheek. A snake in every pocket for the movers and shakers inside the... not inside the guild. One day, she may have a need to pull those snakes back close to her in order to pursue a great prize. Ooh, you know what we might have just done? We might have just explained why many... several or many of her snakes in her hair have a little gold piercing through them. But not all. What if that's a way that she is keeping track of influential members that she has some sort of domination over? whether it's magical or social or even romantic. And so she marks her snakes. What if it's even something like it's chemical in nature, where each of the snakes produces a unique pheromone or something, and when she recruits people to the Golgari, they are bitten by the snake to form a kind of bond with her. So she's recruiting, and she's not being subversive to the Golgari swarm, but she's making sure that she has influence one way or the other. And so these people will return to her for sort of a booster shot, right? So they'll go up and maybe they'll get bit by their snake in order to keep that bond going. That could be interesting. And your PCs may never figure it out or know. But you know, and it might give you a lot of really cool ideas. Maybe she was a basilisk breeder or seller, or in the past, double agent. Was, is, could be in the future, if not now. These are all good ideas. Rhodey and Psyart, you're throwing some good stuff out. Bonds. In a sentence, summarize the people, places, or things that are especially important. Let's roll a d10. 8. Protective of a valuable possession. Oh, how about this? Let me find the name of it. Nordic mythology gold ring. Dropnir, that's what I'm looking for. Okay. So, Dropnir. By the way, this is why being kind of a nerd is fun, because you can just kind of, you come up with stuff like this, right? It's a gold ring possessed by the god Odin with the ability to multiply itself. Every 9th night, 8 new rings drip from Dropnir, each one the same size and weight as the original. Dropnir is forged by etc. and so forth. So what if she cherishes something similar to Dropnir? And that is what, so her recruits wear a ring. The other ring, or like a binding ring, is then placed through one of her snakes. And so she has these people who are bound to her through her snakes and this magical item that perhaps lets them communicate with each other telepathically or empathically or something along those lines. Could that be a good idea? Does that seem interesting? Do we have a cool character? Or, yeah, one of the snakes. Or maybe her snakes are the ones that can produce this sort of custom pheromone, right? Pardon me, a little bit of a nasal. And lastly, a flaw or a secret. Let's roll a d12. 10. Ooh, a secret crime or a misdeed. Psyart, we might be coming back to what you're talking about here. What could her secret crime or misdeed have been? She might have been a double agent, or she might have been working for another guild. And she was chased out, and she found sanctuary with the Golgari. And so that's her secret. Maybe she betrayed another clan. And so, in this case, you know, her domination is to assure that she has a place here. Maybe she really likes the Golgari, and she doesn't plan on betraying them, but she's going to cement her position with them so that what happened before doesn't happen again. Does turning someone to stone count as a crime? I'm sure it could. Right? Just like we were talking about with paladins before, or clerics before. If you turn undead in Ravnica, you could murder citizens, innocent citizens. You have to watch out for your abilities. She betrayed her former guild. And we could just leave it open at that. Don't worry about which one was it. We just say she betrayed her former guild and was nearly killed. Oh, by stealing secrets and her, and her magic item. Her magic bonding item. She found sanctuary with the Golgari and hasn't looked back, besides over her shoulder. Occasionally. It could have been Demir. We could ration it. It could have been any of them. What if she was? What if she was being studied by the? What if she was being studied by the Simic? How to incorporate, you know, the elements of a Gorgon into their hybrids. So here we go. We have. I think we have a very interesting Medusa NPC that is going to help influence our party. And, you know, certainly 2 of the PCs have been influenced by her. So now, you know, we have this warmed up. Let's go through and kind of, and we're going to make our second NPC and then take a 10-minute break. Right? So we have this Homunculus that's a clerk in the Azorius Senate who is going to bond Jeremy. I know it's Jeremy, but Jeremy and Dreandar here are Azorius kind of Judge Dredd, you know, no nonsense bad cop kind of Azorius enforcer, and our Golgari bard here as well, who knows how to fence things and find things and is kind of an informant. Occupation and history. So we'll say he works in the permit department and has the ability to find, bar, or expedite, or delay various transactions. He can also cause obfuscation or distract attention to, or away from, or to, if it is beneficial, certain people or files. NPC appearance. Now, a homunculus is a little winged critter. Kind of looks like a little gremlin. In the I don't have it open just yet. I can bring one up after the break. So like it's like a little servitor here. Okay. Let's go back up our NPC appearance. It's going to appear as a homunculus does, but what is going to be something that sets this homunculus apart from other homunculi? Roll a d20. 17. A distinctive nose. so they're kind of a pug, like almost like kind of a bat looking nose. But we can say, his nose. His nose is crooked from an accident where he was piled upon by books he was pulling off of a shelf. It also bears a scar that he doesn't discuss, besides dismissing it as a bad paper cut. We're leaving it open-ended. Was it really just a bad paper cut? Maybe. Did he get into a fight in some way and he got a scar across? Maybe. But leave it open. Just describe it. So he has a crooked nose, but there's also like a tear or a scar down it. And he just says, I got it in a paper cut, right? He works in an office. So he'll try and laugh it off, but there's actually a story behind that scar. Will it ever come up? I don't know. It could be fun, and it can lead us into further adventures. Nose split in two. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, something. So it's crooked, and so maybe the tip of his nose. Actually, so he has. You know how people have a butt chin, a cleft chin. Maybe he has a butt nose. Yeah. Although it's cut, like there was some sort of a severing to it. Could even be at a diagonal. All right, his abilities. Let's roll 2d6 for a high and a low. Remember, we don't need to stat him out necessarily. He's a facilitator. 6 and 4. Ooh, another high charisma. And low is 4 intelligence. He's dim-witted or slow. But he has a high charisma here, so he's very persuasive and forceful. Often browbeats others into doing his work, as in many cases he doesn't actually know how to do it himself. That said, he's efficient in other ways and quite the brown-noser. How about that, huh? And again, it kind of comes back to the nose. So, you know, he may be a functionary, but he's acting like a supervisor, and people just give in to his browbeating. You know, because he's always busy with this other stuff. He's like, oh, do this. And he's the face, but he might not even know how to process things. But he keeps giving it to other people to do, and will give him, like, encouraging, like, yeah, hey, thanks for that. Got in a fight with a magical tome, and now he doesn't like dealing with wizard grimoires. Do you have living books in your world? Maybe, maybe not. That really just depends on the person running the game. Homunculi might only have one eye. I mean, if we look at the spell out of... Actually, is Homunculus in this book? It might be in Xanathar's. Yeah, Homunculus isn't in the PHB. Maybe he's a supervisor. He might just be a legitimate supervisor, or he just carries himself as he is. Because I'm sure we can all think of people who've been in similar positions in various workplaces. Oh, actually, you know what? There's a homunculus, I'm sure. Conclave Dryad, Orzhov Giant. See, these are the pieces that we are popping from our miniatures. Horrors. Skittering shadow. There's an indentured spirit. Popped open one of those. There's that weird that we popped open. We popped open that Krasis and that other one too. Let me check the table of contents. Is Homunculus in here? Horn collar? No, I'm not seeing one offhand. Yeah, homunculi are definitely Azorius creatures. Azorius law mages craft... Oh, here we go. One-eyed homunculi to perform menial tasks in Azorius buildings. These homunculi use the statistics of a regular homunculus, except that they are wingless and have no flying speed. So there we go. Yeah, homunculus is in the monster manual. Got it. And they have one eye. So good call on that, DJ. Homunculus as a spell, like to summon one as your own servant, isn't in the because I think it's just called Homunculus. I think that's in Xanathar's. But in the monster manual, yes, the monster Homunculus is in there. Alright, our talent. What is his talent? Let's roll a d20. 20! He also knows Thieves' Cant. Considering his ability to fence items and open up other opportunities, he has learned the secret language of many of his unofficial employers. Mannerism. 17. He paces. As he often has to wait for others to fulfill his requests, he paces impatiently, especially if there is nobody else around with whom he can speak. When he sits, he bounces his leg. It was a fight with a stolen wizard's grimoire. It falls into place. Yeah, and so if he was fencing an item, maybe something like boop, it bopped him when he was taking care of it. Interactions with others. That's a D12. We rolled an 8. Hot-tempered. Ooh. I think we all have worked with people similar to this, right? Bossy, they don't do their own job, but they're going to tell you how to do your own. He gets impatient and is known to curse in several languages, at least 2 of which aren't even real languages. Have a little fun, right? Have a little fun with this. So he's come up with his own 2 languages here, maybe so he sounds more important and enlightened. if things don't go his way, he can very quickly close the same loopholes he opened up previously. Well, yeah, Rhodey, I understand. Useful knowledge. He knows the inner workings of the red tape machine of Ravnica itself. Simple, one sentence, and very powerful. He knows how he can work the system. He knows how the system works. Or at least he knows how to get people who know how to do their jobs to work for him. Kind of like a Tom Sawyer, right? He tricks the other kids into whitewashing the fence. All right, his ideal. So I guess this is going to do 3d6. We're going to do odds and evens. And then the other one's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then where on that 6 is his ideal. Evens. So it'll be the right-hand column. 3, it'll be the middle. And option number 2. Ooh, creativity. Because of his lack of functional knowledge, yet his overarching or overreaching influence, he must constantly come up with reasons, excuses, distractions, or other inspirations in order for him to perform his primary job as well as his secondary one. His bond, D10, 8. Oh, protective of a valuable possession. Ooh. You know what? I love coincidences when we're randomly generating something. He is very protective of a gold ring that a Medusa gave him a long time ago. It writes itself, ladies and gentlemen. It writes itself. And lastly, his flaw or his secret. In fact, we can say of a unique gold ring. D12. We rolled a 7. Has a powerful enemy. Could we make the same Medusa an enemy? We kind of implied maybe he might be working-ish, or at least she has a snake in his pocket as well. He has a powerful enemy. The gang cop? Well, I mean, we have someone who's working in the Azorius Senate with an above-board job and is apparently good at it, even if people don't necessarily like his personality. He is a powerful enemy. Maybe we just leave this open to one of the villains that we're going to be creating after our break. And so an NPC can help introduce our PCs to the BBEG, to the villain. Our non-playable character here can introduce our player characters to the villain, or one of the big villains of the game. Ta-da! Especially when this very influential person is relied upon by another NPC and Jeremy and Dreandar. Again, ladies and gentlemen, open yourself up to randomness. Just let it happen and trust yourself to come up with connections. This story has written itself so far. All I've been doing is just channeling it through electrons onto a document on a computer. This has occurred naturally by itself. It has grown organically, and it links everything together without seeming contrived, without seeming forced in some way. And on that, why don't we take a break? Come back in about 10 minutes. What do you say? You know, get a snack, a drink, you know, use the restroom if you have to. And when we come back, why don't we make a villain or two? Which is going to be similar with a couple extra steps involved. All right, everyone?